What is up, YouTube? We are here today with another Reddit roundup. So user Cashada91, Cashada, anyway, depending on how you want to say his name, Cashada91 asks the question, what are league starter builds compared to other builds? So this is very likely a daft question, but I'm new, just got my first character past Act 10 in a cheesy manner. What exactly is a starter build? How do they differ from other builds? And what exactly do you look for in a starter build? So there's a couple of good responses here, and then I'm going to give you some of my own thoughts. So Boy says starter builds are builds that don't require expensive things to get working normally, only needing no item requirements or cheap uniques that can take some part of the game to make cash for other builds or to min-max your starter into endgame. Okay, so he's trying to get at something there. I wish his grammar was a little bit better, but decent. Basically saying, hey, stuff that's not expensive that can get you to where you want to go. Dennis D says, or are builds that start cheap, don't require a currency sink, and allow you to farm said currency. Most allow you to do endgame, but require you to invest gradually to make a stronger version from where you started. Okay, so these guys are hinting at it. I'm going to try and condense into three simple tips the qualities of a starter build. So three simple qualities. So the first one that's already been mentioned here is simply the price of the build. So what is the price of said starter build? So does the build require you to have, for instance, a 6-link, a particular 6-link socketed chess piece, or a particular 6-link unique two-handed weapon? Does the build require you to have specific rolls on jewels in order to hit certain damage thresholds? Does the build require an obscure unique that is rather rare? So it may be a great build, but the drop itself is rather rare, which means it's going to be rather valuable on the market. Other things to consider, maybe the cost of farming uniques or farming divination cards for the particular uniques of your starter build. So basically, boiling it down, again, is simply what's the price tag of the build. When you're looking at a build, and you begin looking at the pros and cons of a build guide or the description of a build guide, and you start looking at the items, the jewels, the divination cards that it'll take to farm the uniques that enable the build. What is the cost of that? So the first factor of a starter build is what's the price? Is it a pricey starter, or is it a pricey build? Which, if it's a pricey build, it's not going to be a starter build because there's simply not that much currency that you have at the beginning of a league or at the beginning of your playthrough in standard. Now, the second thing is the goal of the build. So you've heard this mentioned. It's kind of progressing through to certain bosses or to a certain completion point on your atlas, or farming a percentage or a certain type of divination card. For instance, if you're farming a headhunter and you want to farm the doctor, then you're going to need to be able to farm burial chambers, and you're going to need to be able to set up your atlas in such a manner that you can get a big pool of burial chamber maps. So the second feature of a starter build is simply articulating the goal of the build, and the build is able to meet that goal. So first thing, not very pricey, inexpensive, something that you can get early on in a league, doesn't have a ton of build enabling uniques that are rare or that are gated behind high currency costs, and then the build can actually meet the goals that it has stated for it. So for instance, there are some build guides that are going to say, hey, this is a great build guide for clearing maps and generating currency. Okay, that's great. So if your goal of your league starter is to generate currency so that way you can go out and buy all of these other really expensive things for another build, great. Then actually a farming build is going to be great as your league starter. If you're going for a bossing league starter, one that can maybe clear your atlas, get atlas completions, and then go farm Shaper or go farm Elder or go farm Uber Aziri or go farm the Pale Council or Breach Lords, that's great. But again, can the build actually do what its stated goal is? Can it farm that boss? Can it farm that map? Can it clear that map in a quick, efficient manner such that it's actually meeting your goal? And then lastly, the power curve. What I'm going to call is the power curve of the build. So in other words, this is taking your price of your build and your goal of your build and then really comparing it. So if you were to put it on a graph or a diagram, what is the curvature or the point, the threshold point, the tipping point at which time your build can say, yes, I can accomplish these goals that I have set for it, and this is the price point that I've set to accomplish that. So the pricier your build, the longer it's going to take for you to save up currency in order to get to that threshold for you to be able to accomplish that goal. So a relatively simple cost. If you simply envision a graph of an X and a Y, you can say goal of the build and then price of the build. And the higher up the price, in order to meet the goal, the further along that line you're going to have to travel, the longer time it's going to take you to be able to accomplish that goal. Does that mean that your league starter can't be some ridiculously OP and really rare and really unique build? No, it doesn't. It just means that it's going to take a lot longer for you to do it. So this is why league starter builds are low in price, they have a manageable set goal, and then their power curve is relatively quickly achieved. Anyway, what are your thoughts? What are your league starters? What were your league starters for the Incursion League? Mine was a gladiator, a dual-wielding gladiator duelist, which is really fun. I've got him up to level 90 now. My Atlas is at 128 out of 58, 158. I'm very happy with it. I'm probably going to kill Shaper this week. So really super stoked for my league starter that has been fun to play. Anyway, what are your league starters or your league starter tips? Leave us a comment down below. And as always, if there was an error or something that you caught in the video that was full of crap, let me know in the comments down below. We'll go back and we'll correct it. Thanks so much. And as always, stay tuned for more PoE daily content.